For anyone here in the United States who has worked on the issue of Palestine for many years, the change we've seen in public discourse over the past decade or so has been remarkable. It wasn't long ago that it was taboo to criticize Israeli policies, and the conversation in mainstream media was almost entirely devoid of any perspective that was sympathetic to the Palestinians. There was a concerted effort to distort the reality of the occupation, oppression, ethnic cleansing, and apartheid that Israel wages against the Palestinians, and to maintain the illusion that Israel was somehow the victim in this conflict. In the campaigns waged in this effort, talks by public intellectuals who spoke the truth were cancelled, professors lost their jobs, death threats were made, media outlets were pressured to curb criticism of Israel, and slanderous charges of anti-Semitism were leveled against many critics of Israeli policies, including President Carter and leading academics at Harvard and the University of Chicago. But in spite of these efforts, the resilience of the movement in the United States for justice in Palestine and the incredible commitment and hard work of groups like the U.S. campaign to end the Israeli occupation has successfully shifted public discourse in this country. When you turn on mainstream American television today, you find that the taboo against criticizing Israel has been shattered.
Today, the Israeli government announced that it was easing the blockade to allow snack food, like potato chips and soft drinks, into Gaza. What made them suddenly less dangerous? Israel is for Israelis. If anything, the Palestinians should go back to where they came from.
I think...
Well, the Americans are helping you so much in your defense. Israel goes on building settlements, which is exactly what the Americans don't want. How does that work when you're asking America for help and doing exactly what the Americans don't want you to do?
You know, Bob, I prefer not to answer this question right now.
If you're in your apartment and somebody, emotionally disturbed person, is banging on the door, screaming, "I'm going to come through this door and kill you," do you want us to respond with one police officer, which is proportional, or with all the resources at our command?
I guess it depends if I force that guy to live in my hallway and make him go through checkpoints every time he has to take.
Which is that there have been nonviolent resistance in the West Bank. There's been hunger strikes. There's been mass marches that have been peaceful. And essentially the American media pays no attention, does nothing.
Clearly, this man does not understand that when it comes to Israel, there are certain things you can't say. For instance, implying that there are certain things you can't say, which there aren't. You can say anything you want about Israel, which I would if there was anything to say, but there isn't, so there's nothing to be said. And how dare Hegel say it?
The people of Israel are the warmest, the most generous, kindest, gentlest, the most self-effacing,
really?
easygoing people on God's green earth. Israel has the best food.
What?
They got the best beaches, most beautiful women in the world.
That's very subjective.
What else they got? They make the best movies, and they have the best rock and roll hip hop.
Well, that's doubtful.
You know the tallest mountain in the world is in Israel.
That's definitely not true.
Yeah.
Senator Hagel, I think you know that no one in this room cares more deeply about the safety and security of Israel than I do.
What? That is a lie!
I love Israel.
Order!
But there's no doubt that within the occupied territories, Palestinian land, that there is a horrendous example of apartheid. The persecution of the Palestinians now under the occupied territories is under the occupation forces is one of the worst examples of human rights deprivation that I know.
But Netanyahu wanted the other guy. That's clear.
David, we do not. Israel does not get involved in internal politics in Israel.
You're adorable. You're adorable.
Oh, I forgot. You can't say anything remotely critical of Israel and still get elected president, which is funny because you know where you can criticize Israel? Israel.
We certainly still have a lot of work ahead of us, as the situation in Palestine remains dire, and U.S. policy remains one-sided and counterproductive, offering massive amounts of military aid and unconditional diplomatic support for Israel, in spite of its continued settlement expansion and violations of Palestinian rights. But as we continue with our critical work, it's sometimes useful to pause and reflect on the great progress we've made in opening the debate up on this issue, to energize ourselves and keep going until we achieve peace and justice for all Israelis and Palestinians.